Welcome back to Raptor-One.
Raptor-One, Voyagers of the Stars. Season 2, Chapter 10, How the Water Remembers. The board decides the weather. Ash ladder used to be a corridor, the kind you take when you're late for an appointment you don't want to admit you care about. It ran slantwise through a belt of soft-lit dust whose particles behaved like polite rain, falling until they remembered they were always falling. Pilots called it a ladder because the lights along its edge climbed toward a dull star and never quite reached it. On the board, it was a swath of blackened hull laid diagonally across copper. Someone had soldered 6 rivets along its length years ago to mark checkpoints. Now 3 new red chips, grid anchors, nested around it like teeth being patient on purpose. Second triangle, the organizer said. Narrower jaw than still water. Meaner. Patience tuned higher, Talon added, fingertip hovering over the red chips. It will act quicker to keep its own timing true. The water remembers, Ira murmured. She meant habit, not ocean. It learned us once. It will try to correct us sooner. Saran looked at the 8 of them and felt the chair in their hollow way options, then let it go. Same posture, they said. New manners. Late. Arrive after the room expects us. Plain. No brilliance to feed doctrine. Stubborn. No improvisation that teaches a bad lesson. Varric tapped a hinge on the slab. Sable. 3 with the limp. It reads like old pain. Curtains tend to pity old pain. No broadcast, Chiron said. Only posture. He slid a clay token to the board's edge and left it crooked. I'll lay decoy boredom in the far corner if we need the curtain to bully a ghost. Darrow snugged a rope ring around the ladder's hull strip and tied Cotrin's door-hold knot with an overt ugliness. Rescue protocol. Pull forward, not up. This corridor loves to make ceilings out of floors. Tessa set the felt sling with the ember at the map's center and hummed once, under breath, unpretty, to show how little the count demanded. The water in the hearth's basin answered, present, and settled. Cyrus placed his 2 rain filters side by side where the hall's lamp could kiss them. A faint gray wash rippled across the soldered rivets on the ladder strip. If we ever tell this, he said, we tell it damp. The elder drew a circle around the triangle with a fingertip, then rubbed the line away. No map will fit what you're about to do, they said. Carry count. Bring 8. Dust with opinions. Ash ladder filled the windows with slow glitter. Dust ribboned in patient streams, each strand keeping time with the others until a pebble lost nerve and made a wobble rip 3 lengths down. Pulls down left, Iris said. Pretends not to. Let it pretend while we don't. The triangle lay ahead like a polite ambush. The north and south anchors held firm. The eastern one pulsed its impatience in 8th notes. Between their hush and the ladder's rain, the space read like a choir warming up for a song you didn't want to sing. North listens hardest, Talon repeated from Stillwater's lesson. South follows quickly. East insists it was already right. Varric seeded the imperfect fin. Heat is a slope with a limp. He ran the waste bleed into sand like gossip into a floorboard. Let's be old furniture. Chiron stood behind dead radios and studied the field as chalk dust on glass. The triangle's patience braided with the ladder's memory until the room smelled like a clock that hated being wrong. Count, Saran said. For slow, Ira replied. Rest on the one we want to step through. Tessa set her late hum in the dust and felt it take like tea into bread. The ember warmed her sternum, metronome steady and unproud. Cyrus clipped the blind lens against bulkhead and turned his chair a few degrees toward Tessa so he could hear the edge of her breath. Check in? he asked, soft as a fingertip on paper. Here. No beacon. She didn't look at him, which is how you look at someone without teaching a room the wrong lesson. You? Hungry, quiet, he said. Rule 3 holding. Good. Saran lifted a hand like a conductor acknowledging a hall that hasn't yet decided to listen. On my word, they said, and let the word arrive late. Teaching the triangle to be late to itself. They approached the northern anchor at the pace of paperwork. The anchor leaned forward to take their measure and found a ship more boring than memory. Ira slipped the embers count into a panel Varric had polished dull, not power, posture. The anchor reached for the steady rhythm and missed by a hair. It adjusted. South following, Talon said. East complaining. Chiron cracked a breath of error into the count, off by the width of a gilt. Tessa let her hum honor the error instead of correcting it. The triangle's tidy patience tugged against itself. Rest, Ira murmured, and Raptor-One paused in the only way that doesn't feel like stopping. Everything continued, nothing advanced. Dust braided around the bow, pleased with itself. The east anchor insisted. The north refused. The south tried to make peace and became clumsy. Paper corridor, Varric said, admiration and warning braided together. We can walk that. Now, Ira breathed, and the ship leaned into the rest the way a dancer moves through silence. They slid between insistences thinner than a broken rule. Ash likes to cling. Halfway along, a skein of dust got ideas. It spun itself into a rope of static and clung to the starboard radiator, adding weight where doctrine smells advantage. Varric's ruined arm twitched. His good hand pinned the bad one to the console. I know, he told it. We do nothing. The additional mass changed the fin's song. The south anchor turned its head. Chiron felt it first. Attention rising. Curtain considering. Hold, Saran said. No cleverness. Tessa lowered her tone a fraction. The ember doubled down on indifference. Ira let the count wobble once. A human error offered as tribute. The south anchor tasted humility and mistrusted it. Then, reluctantly, allowed it to be true. The dust rope loosened its own idea and unraveled back into weather. Still with us, Talon said, surprise and pride equal. Darrow had not breathed for 5 beats. Tessa tapped his knuckles. In 2, out 4. He obeyed. The rope at his wrist lay easy and honest, ready for the work it hadn't yet been asked to do. Cyrus swallowed, cheeks hot with restrained admiration. He slid a thumbnail under the seam of his 2 rain filters and pinched them together as if he could absorb damp instead of applause. Check, he whispered. Tessa's glance was the work of a heartbeat. Steady, she said. You're doing good. The compliment landed in him like a coal that warms the right room. Rumor learns to wait. They were not alone in the ladder. A keeper curtain sat 3 corridors off, angled oddly, as if someone had told it a story and it had decided to sit inside the telling rather than patrol around it. It's waiting inside a rumor, Chiron said, baffled delight shading his voice. Somebody taught it boredom was worth investigating. Talon? Saran asked. Talon's mouth tilted. Not I, they said, but I know the shape. The sparrow lanes are learning to plant empty stories the curtains want to believe. Then we owe drinks to people we haven't met, Varric grunted. We owe them not proving the trick, Ira corrected. Let's pass while it's busy being a critic. They eased through the last stretch of paper. Dust lilted, the triangle miscounted, and the rumor-occupied curtain did not look up from its comfortable suspicion. Raptor-One reached the rest Ira had marked on the far side and let momentum become mercy. The memory in the dust. Ash Ladder had one more opinion to offer. As they cleared the anchor's reach, the dust behind them flowed into shapes. A smeared suggestion of letters, broken rails, a doorframe, a face. Not literal memory. The corridor remembered ships that failed here and sculpted the failure back into air. Tessa's hum faltered. Her shard went cold in warning. The ember at her chest warmed with stubborn compassion and not a drop of pride. Cyrus saw the dust face open its mouth and recognized the reflex in himself to narrate it into significance. "Don't," he said to his own body. He didn't mean be quiet. He meant do not make this a message. Tessa understood the same instant. "It's a room," she whispered, "not a sign." Ira kept the count. Varric kept the limp. Darrow kept the rope honest. Chiron kept his hands off the old certainties. Talon kept a tally of how many times mercy had entered the day. The dust's memory faded because they refused to perform for it. "Good," Saran said after 4 more breaths. "Let's not become folklore." 3 breaths again. They made the open reach between ladder and pocket when the far rumor curtain twitched, bored with being entertained by nothing. Its edge tilted toward Gray River. Chiron could taste its interest blooming like a bruise. 3 breaths, he said. "I can lay a dull posture at Ash's other rim and make it critique that instead." Saran did the count with fingers where only Chiron could see. 1, 2, 3. "Do it," they said. "Say it." Chiron laid the posture late and plain, an alliance maintenance knock with a scuff on it. The curtain rotated a degree to frown at the corner, then committed to not understanding it for a while. Raptor-One passed unremarked. "Logged," Chiron said. "I'll stop cadging favors from old sins when we run out of curtains with bad taste." "Or before," Darrow muttered, without heat. Chiron inclined his head. "Or before." Returning the count. The pocket welcomed them with the same unshowy grace. Ring, ribs, measure throat. Band stayed cool. Hood waited. Bowls did not pretend to be altars. They were work. They banked first. Ember on the basin's lip. Ira counted. Tessa laid the hum beneath. Varric let heat become weather. The hood drew the extra out of the room and turned it to boredom. The bowls answered present. When the tone held like a chair under weight, they looked at the board. Ira laid a ribbon through the triangle with a tiny hitch at the northern chip. "We made patience late to itself again," she said, "and didn't teach." Talon added 3 screws, as before. "Stiffer here," they noted at the east anchor. "It will argue faster next time." Varric placed the blemished fin on the slab and patted it like an old dog. "You did good lying, sweetheart." Darrow's rope looped the board's leg once, then fell away obediently when he tugged. Door held. Chiron put a clay token where the rumor curtain had waited inside a story. "The keepers are learning boredom," he said, "so we keep it better." Cyrus leaned one rain filter on the other, so the lamp painted a sheen across the ladder strip. "We will tell the day without adding fireworks," he said, making the promise public so he couldn't wiggle out of it later. Tessa placed her shard beside the seed and hummed 2 notes a hair off from each other. The basin's rim brightened the seam you could only feel. "Count kept," she said. "Room pleased." Saran set both hands on the board and looked like someone choosing to be tired later. "We did not become a message," they said. "We did not become a statue. We crossed." The elder poured a half cup of water into the empty bowl and moved it an inch. "Payment made. Room kept." Their eyes went to Cyrus and Tessa and softened. A teacher praising two students for doing a hard thing small. Warmth with rules. Third watch, the hall dozed. Under the hood, on their ledge, they practiced the grammar they had decided together. Check in, Tessa said. Cyrus smiled, almost sheepish. I wanted to kiss you on the ladder when the dust made a face, he admitted. I wanted to promise you we'd be okay so the room would believe me. Thank you for not doing either, she said. Thank you for telling me now. I'm proud of you, he added, astonished by how simple it felt to say, for keeping the count steady even when the world wanted a song. The compliment landed as warmth that didn't need to be seen. Tessa tucked it away the way you tuck bread in your pocket for later. I'm proud of you, she said, for being late. They kissed once, like placing a cup on a shelf where it belongs. Then they went still and listened to the ember keep time. Chiron and Talon invent a smaller knife. At the work table, wires and paper and the pot of water again. Chiron outlined a jitter that could live in a ship's bones without feeling like a trick. Talon countered with a cadence you could teach to a corridor and not own. We can lend patience and error, Chiron said. We can make impatience polite, Talon replied. Not a weapon, Chiron insisted. A tool, Talon agreed. Small knife to cut bad rope. They wrote it down in timings and did not give it a name. Names are heavy. Orders that admit cost. The Accord did not make speeches. The organizer tapped the new triangle, then a third rumor-laced corridor beyond ash called Fathom's Gate. Anchors were growing. Keepers were learning to wait inside stories. The ember could not live in bowls forever. Carry, the elder said. Still water. Ash. Fathom. Make patience late to itself. Bring 8. If you must let a room close on you to keep others open, do it with posture intact. Saran didn't pretend not to hear the cost. Terms hold, they said. Late. Plain. Stubborn. Free breath grace. No broadcast. No light brighter than the band. Bring 8. Blind lens, the organizer added. Ritual turned muscle. Leave room. The median's finished, and the rule warmed the wall. They rested an hour and a handful of breaths. Then they readied. Ember at Tessa's sternum, steady. Ira with a map in her bones, not on paper. Varric with a hinge uglier than yesterday by choice. Dara with rope that told the truth on first pull. Chiron with the 3-breath rule written into his palm like a scar that finally learned to help. Talon with latches checked as if each fastener were a small prayer. Cyrus with after scrawled inside his filter pouch, which made him grin every time he saw it. Saran with a list of things they would throw into the sea if the band warmed wrong. At the ring, palms lifted. Band's cool. Hood patient. Bring 8, the tall median said, and then, as if conceding the universe's sense of humor, and if you bring 9, we'll make a bigger table. Cyrus leaned close to Tessa on the way to their chairs. After anchors, he whispered, like a secret they'd made together. Late, she said, and the words sounded like a vow that knows how to breathe. Raptor-One tipped her bow toward Fathom's Gate, where water that wasn't would remember them in ways they would refuse to perform, and where a keeper sat inside a rumor polishing its patience to a mirror. They went to teach timing to teeth without becoming a song. A corridor that refuses rhythm. Fathom's Gate looked like a scab on the firmament, a long, dark seam where the starfield's neat punctuation stopped agreeing with itself. Nothing rushed here. Nothing flowed. Everything stalled in different directions. Gravity pulled and withdrew without cadence. Drift eddies formed, forgot, and formed again with a petty vindictiveness that made pilots superstitious. Ira flattened her palm on the NAV glass and did not move it. "This isn't a river," she said quietly. "It's a room where rhythm refuses to live. If we bring a beat, it will try to break us on purpose." "Then we don't bring a beat," Saran answered. "We lend one like a polite guest and take it back when the host starts to show off." The triangle here wasn't tidy. 3 grid anchors sat at wrong distances, one close and prickly, one far and patient, one hidden behind a warp and habit like a spider behind a curtain. The silencer hush between them felt thicker than still waters. Radios sank and didn't bother to try to swim. Talon's jaw worked once and then eased. Memory didn't frighten them anymore, but it made them brief. "East anchor is the bully," Talon said. "North is watchful. West is cheap, underfunded doctrine. The bully will act fastest to defend its timing." "Bully first, then," Darrow muttered. "Or last?" "Neither," Chiron said. "We make it late to itself, then walk past while the others argue about whether to imitate it." Varric slid a hand along the sable, 3-fin, and left the hinge offensively imperfect. "We look like a machine that was never right." He fed waste into sand until the slope read tired beyond reproach. Bully doctrine pities old failures. Let it. Tessa checked the felt sling at her sternum. The ember warmed, not brighter, steadier. "It wants to keep time," she murmured. "Nothing else." Cyrus set the blind lens to archive nothing again and tucked his 2 rain filters under the rim of the console where the hall's light would have been if the hall were here. "Check in?" he breathed. Tessa's mouth softened. "Here. No beacon. A beat. You?" "Hungry," he admitted, "but remembering our rules." "Good correction," she said, and that phrase had become the closest thing they'd allow to pet names. Saran lifted 2 fingers. "Hush. On my word," they said. "Late." The knife without a name. They didn't start with the ember. They started with the smaller knife Chiron and Talon had whittled at the work table, a timing jitter that could live in bones without becoming a trick. Varric carried it like a tune your hands can hum. Ira held its edges in memory. "Set the blade shallow," Talon advised. "If you cut too deep, the room will learn where the edge is." Chiron nodded. "I'll bias the field a hair toward patience and then tremble it." Tessa's hum, cross-grip plain, went beneath even that. Half a breath late, the sound you make to steady a frightened animal. Saran tipped Raptor-One into Fathom's Gate the way a dancer puts weight onto a foot they don't trust yet. The ship's bones carried the jitter. The room noticed. "North watching," Chiron reported. "Bully listening. West anchor deciding whether to bother." Ira counted in 4 slow with a rest you treat like air. On the rest, Varric breathed the second half beat into the hull, the barest tremble. The bully anchor reached to steady it and missed by a finger's width. "Again," Saran said. They offered the tremble a second time and then didn't offer it when the bully expected it. The watchful North tried to correct. The cheap West attempted to keep up and fell behind. For a breath, the triangle's patience braided itself wrong. "Paper space," Ira whispered, eyes bright with the satisfaction of a carpenter who's found the grain. "Between bully and watcher." "Now," Saran murmured. They leaned into the gap like a skater entering black ice. Rumor with teeth. A keeper curtain waited inside a rumor on the gate's far side, polishing its boredom into cruelty. It had learned, perhaps from sparrows, perhaps from watching the Accord, to sit inside a story and refuse to blink. As Raptor-One slid between the anchor's disagreement, the curtain's edge twitched, interested in being impressed. Chiron kept his hands folded. "It wants us to perform," he said. "It has set a chair in the aisle and will not move until we trip." "We don't trip," Saran said. "We stop wanting to be seen." Tessa lowered her voice until even she could barely hear it. The ember held count like a heart that refuses to speed up for panic. Varric leaned more weight onto the hinge's imperfection. "Make our limp obvious," he muttered, "so doctrine wastes pity instead of curiosity." Dara watched the rope at his wrist lie easy. Ira kept the rest exactly where she'd put it and dared the room to disagree. The curtain did not blink. It leaned. Rumor in its mouth tried to bite and found its jaw wouldn't close because nothing had volunteered to be teeth. "Late," Tessa breathed. "Plain," Cyrus echoed, and kept his eyes on the bulkhead, not on her mouth. "Stubborn," Saran finished, and the ship obeyed. They drifted under the curtain's regard like furniture. The ember did no more than be itself. The knife trembled once, and then didn't tremble where a lesser craft would have tried to prove it could. The keeper's rumor lost interest the way a bored clerk loses track of a form that refuses to be dramatic. It settled. The corridor makes a lie. Fathom's Gate had one more cruelty. As they cleared the bully's orbit, the field stitched up a false lane in front of them. A bright thread of habit that looked like safety and led, with exquisite patience, to a blind pocket where timing goes to drown. Ira saw it first. "No," she said, softly, to the glass. "You are a message pretending to be a room." Chiron smiled without joy. "Fifth error," he said, almost tender, "that a perfect signal convinces you it's a message and not a room." Saran did something that looked like nothing at all. They paused, wanting to be done. The ship's urge to escape eased. The blind pocket's glow dimmed because the room could no longer smell relief coming to betray them. "Left 3 degrees, Ira murmured. "Late." They slid past the lie's mouth. The pocket tried to invent a new comfort and found none of them hungry enough to eat it. Cyrus blew out a breath he had not intended to hold and looked at Tessa as if she were the person who'd kept him from saying we made it too soon. She didn't look back. She felt it and smiled anyway. The shake. Error lives inside bodies, not just rooms. Varric's ruined arm spasmed when a mild shock ran along the starboard strut, electricity equalizing where dust had decided to be petulant. His hand twitched for a dial again. This time, he caught himself without help and did not confess. He reached with his good hand, set the slope true, and nodded once to the panel like a man telling an old wound, "Thank you for letting me pass." Tessa's count didn't flinch. The ember accepted the apology nobody heard. Darrow's rope lifted and settled, honest. Chiron's hands opened and closed. Curtain yawning, he reported. "We're becoming furniture again." "Stay furniture," Saran said. "I like being a chair if it keeps us from being a speech." Talon's small trick. Near the gate's far lip, the cheap west anchor woke to the humiliation of having been late to its own party. It lunged to resynchronize with the bully. That lunge would have swept the corridor they were using. Talon closed their eyes. Free breath grace. 1, Saran counted softly. 2. 3. Talon spoke, not to radios, to the field itself, in the old maintenance dialect the Alliance used to talk to in different rooms. Not a command, a reminder. Inventory drift, they told the west anchor kindly. Check your own screws. The cheap anchor, being cheap, could not resist the officious reflex. It spent a breath on self-audit that doctrine hadn't budgeted. In that breath, Raptor-One slid through. Logged, Talon said, voice level. Owed. Owed and permitted, Saran replied. We count the cost and keep the room. Chiron's mouth tilted, not quite a smile. Better than thorough, he murmured, and the compliment meant merciful. Out. Fathom's Gate tried one last time to make them explain themselves. Saran refused. The ship eased back into Grey River's more decent habit, neither triumphant nor ashamed. Citizen, not hero. Status, Saran said, because work ends when you name what it took. Heat on slope, Varric answered. Limp obvious. Hinge ugly and proud. Curtain board, Chiron said. Rumor unfinished. Count steady, Tessa murmured, palm over the ember. It did not learn to perform. Rope's honest, Darrow said, and there was something like softness in the way he said honest. Map remembers, Ira added. The lie pocket can't hurt anyone who isn't impatient. Talon's eyes had gone quiet in the way of people who have finally been allowed to finish a thought. Small knife worked, they said. We didn't teach the edge. Cyrus grinned and then tamped it down into something truer. Satisfaction without applause. Check in? He asked Tessa, because habit is how you keep promises in bad weather. Steady, she said. Later we can name the joy. Now we bank it. Banked. The pocket. Ring. Ribs. Measure throat. The hall smell of rope and metal and bread. Hood patient. Bowls thirsty. Board waiting for hands. They banked first. Ember to basin's lip. Count laid, not displayed. Hood breathed out heat into boredom. Bowls answered present. Only then did the board accept the day. Iris set 3 dull screws for the fathom triangle and a smear of ash along the false lane. Lie here, she said. A good one. We didn't need it. Varric placed the hinge on the slab with the tenderness of a man setting down a child who walked farther than they were built to. You lied beautifully, he told it. Darrow looped the rope, tugged, felt it give it the right resistance, and left it draped over the ladder strip like a benediction. Door held, he said again. Chiron set 2 clay tokens where the rumor keeper had sat and where Talon had spoken the inventory lullaby. 3-breath grace exercised, he said. Cost counted. Talon put down the knife without name in the form of timings scrawled on a scrap of tape, then peeled the tape off and handed it to the elder. Use when a corridor refuses rhythm, they said. Never twice in the same room. Cyrus leaned a rain filter on the board's corner so the hall lamp kissed the ash smear into a faint sheen. If I ever show this, I'll show the part where we ignored the pocket that wanted to be a reward. Tessa set her shard beside the seed and hummed 2 notes a hair off until the water agreed. Room pleased, she said, which is another way to say we didn't break anything to win. Saran put both palms on the slab. We did not become a message, they repeated. We crossed. The elder poured a measure into the empty bowl and moved it toward the hearth. Payment made, they said. Now hear weather. Weather, with teeth sharpening. News arrived the way the Accord prefers, as practice, not pronouncement. Sparrow Lanes reported a keeper nesting inside an old story near a corridor called Gleamfall, teaching itself how to be rumor instead of merely hunt it. A pocket at Velt's rim stayed open too long, as if a silencer tooth had learned to yawn. And at Stillwater, someone had lit a sun without meaning to. A ship kindled a radiant fragment to impress a curtain. The curtain clapped once and ate the ship's name. The hall went very still. Tessa's hand found the ember as if to shield it. The ember did not need shielding. It kept time. No broadcast, the elder said, toneless. No light brighter than the band. We'll go, Saran answered, and the words did not rush. We'll carry count. We will not teach tricks. We will not make statues of failure. We will be boring in dangerous rooms. Chiron's gaze met Talon's. Old guilt. New craft. We'll also be late, he said. Late can save. Varric put a palm on the hinge, as if to borrow its ugliness for courage. Darrow retied the door-hold knot and left it uglier than before. Ira closed her eyes around a map you can't draw. Cyrus touched the filter pouch and read the grease pencil word, after, and felt steadier than he had any right to feel. Tessa's mouth curved, private, at the same moment his did. Practice makes luck. The organizer tapped the board, Gleamfall, Velt's yawning tooth, Stillwater's cautionary tale, 3 errands, and an ember. Bring 8, the tall median said. Blind lens, the organizer added. Leave room, the elder finished. Warmth, kept. Third watch, hood low, bowls stacked, the hall asleep like a ship. On their ledge, Tessa and Cyrus took stock without making theater. I had a sentence I wanted to say when we cleared the false lane. He confessed, cheeks pink with the foolishness he was choosing to share. It went, we made it. I had the same sentence, she admitted. I said it to the ember instead. I said mine to the bulkhead, he said, and they both laughed softly at the image of 2 people giving their triumph to furniture on purpose. After the next corridor, she said, you can say one sentence like that to me. We'll choose it together. He nodded solemnly, happy in a way that didn't need volume. Deal. They kissed, 1 count, not 2, then let the ember have the room. The hood sighed boredom like blessing.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to be notified about upcoming releases to the Raptor-One series, please subscribe. This has been a Bad Karma Drone production.